So, this was not, and I want to be absolutely clear here, not a sequel to the 1997 classic sports comedy film Air Bud. Before I get into spoilers, I want to make sure that every man, woman, and child watching this knows that The Power of the Dog is not a feel-good film about the greatness of our canine friends. Also, nobody's abusing me. I literally ran into a door in the middle of the night last night, so that's what that is. Hey, I'm Dima, you're watching Does It Hold Up? And today we're taking a look at the new Netflix film, The Power of the Dog. Written and directed by New Zealand filmmaker Jane Campion, the film stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirstin Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and the kid from the road as a wealthy ranch family in the early 20th century. Let's start with spoiler-free impressions. I liked the movie overall. This is a very slow-paced movie, and I mean very slow-paced. It's a little over 2.5 hours long, and, well, the truth is, not much happens in it. While this may sound like a detriment, the movie does do enough to keep you engaged, more or less. Despite the 2-hour runtime, the film doesn't feel long and is finely paced. This is a movie that does require some patience, but if you're willing to give it the time, the film does reward you with how certain plot elements play out. I think I'd maybe give it a 3.5 or maybe a 4 out of 5. Well worth seeing if you like slowly paced and performance-driven films. It's somewhat reminiscent of fellow westerns There Will Be Blood and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. This is a movie you gotta be in a certain mood to watch. You know, it's like sitting through a thick, complex novel. It's not a crowd pleaser by any means, but if you like those kind of movies, this one's worth giving a look. Now, on to spoilers. The movie's best trait is how it cleverly misdirects you, including how its story, themes, and character developments end up playing out, all culminating in the surprising and abrupt ending. The film makes you think that Phil, played by Cumberbatch, is going to be this supremely cruel asshole, and he is an asshole in a lot of ways, but he isn't completely evil or irredeemable. The movie hints at where those emotions and feelings may be coming from, likely stemming from the trauma of losing his lover, an older man named Bronco Henry, at a young age, and not being able to tell anyone due to the nature of their relationship. You're kind of waiting for him to do something shocking or horrible by the end of the film, but he doesn't. Something shocking and horrible ends up happening to him, and the film is somewhat ambiguous as to whether he deserved it or not. He definitely didn't accept Dunst's character Rose. The film never really explains why he's so against the idea of his brother getting married. With Rose, you expect her to be a foil to the two brothers, an element to cause tension in their relationship, but that's not who she is, and that's not where her character goes. Her relationship with Phil and his brother George, her husband, played by Plemons, is more complex than that. He has a subtle level of depth to him, but he didn't do a whole lot in the film. Plemons gives a very good, if understated, performance as George, but ultimately I was left wanting more from him, especially from an actor of Plemons' caliber. The film also sets up early on that Peter may also be gay, but that's not the whole story. We'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a gay discovery film. Obviously, up until extremely recently, it was very frowned upon or even illegal to be gay in the United States. In fact, literally up until a 2003 Supreme Court case, same-sex sexual activity was fucking illegal in 14 states. You literally could not legally go watch The Two Towers in a Texas movie theater and then go have same-sex relations with your partner. You would have been a criminal. So yeah, the movie leads you into thinking that Phil and Peter are going to have a similar experience to what Phil and Bronco Henry had. Peter, in a lot of ways, even paralleled Bronco Henry, like when he noticed the shape of the dog in the the Montana mountainside. He even saddles up on Bronco Henry's saddle at the end. And you think right up until the very end that this is exactly where it's going. By the end of the film, Phil ends up softening up, possibly due to his potential relationship with Peter. At first, he's rather mean and cruel to Peter and his mother, but by the end, he's generally nicer. There are several scenes in the film where we see Phil and Rose alone together, and I kept expecting them to have their scene together, you know? The scene where Rose spills her heart to him and he shuts her down in a moment of unbound cruelty, but that scene never happens. He does pick on her, and it's a problem, but it never gets like insanely abusive. Peter also defies expectations. He's set up as this meek, cautious kid who would have absolutely no place on a cowboy ranch, but he ends up adapting rather quickly. Turns out, we as the audience, as with Phil, who went to Yale, underestimated Peter. He's also very smart, capable, and is studying to become a surgeon. He also is clever and conniving, what with how the ending of the film plays out, and well, may also be an emotionless sociopath. Peter's actually missing for a good chunk of the first half of the film. This is another way the movie kind of misdirects you. You start to feel as though maybe despite his attention early on in the film, he'll more or less be an ancillary character. With that said, this isn't necessarily not a gay discovery film. We don't really see that from Peter's perspective. Like, he might not even be gay, given the exact information we're given from the film. He does find out that Phil is gay when he finds the magazines and does use that to his advantage at the end, but outside of him not being outwardly prototypically masculine and people insinuating that he might be gay, it's never made explicit with his character, which I found interesting. From Phil's perspective, it's actually somewhat tragic. As I said earlier, the loss of his lover Bronco Henry is likely what turned him into this jaded, cynical, mean man, and the thought of experiencing something like what he had before with Peter starts to break that mold, but by then it's already too late. Peter already made the decision that he needs to protect his mother, and he does what he does. There's also a lot of, and I don't know how else to put it, gayness and masculinity, or toxic masculinity maybe, throughout the film. Even when the film begins, we get two grown men sharing a room together. I know they're brothers and all, but I'm talking strictly about the visual. We see burly cowboys lifting a piano together. A guy is randomly standing on a horse. Boys will be boys, am I right? There are tons of little lines peppered throughout the film that fit this theme as well.
That saddle belonged to Bronco Henry. Greatest rider I ever knew. You know who started riding as late as you? Bronco Henry. Haven't done any of it till he was about your age now. Don't let your mom make a sissy of you.
You want me, Mr. Burbank? That's impressive, Phil.
Get out of here, you little bitch!
He's cold.
He's just a man, Peter. Only another man.
He's helping him. He taught him how to ride.
Did Bronco Henry teach you to ride, Phil?
Yep. He taught me to use my eyes in ways that other people can't.
We see a bunch of naked dudes frolicking in the water together. Phil literally pulls out a giant penis and starts fucking the ground with it. I mean, come on. He's also always rolling and putting the phallic-shaped cigarettes in his mouth. The final scene between him and Peter, where they smoke a cigarette together, is also obviously very sexual. I could go on, but the movie clearly heavily touches on the themes of masculinity and gay relationships in interesting ways. All in all, I think this was a very good movie that I think film buffs will like, but general audiences may not have the patience to give a movie like this the time of day. It has strong performances, great visuals, a great score, and is rich in thematic depth. And though the story takes a little while to get going, the movie does end up rewarding its patient viewers well enough. I guess my biggest criticism with the film is that it's just a little slow and boring. This is no doubt intentional, and it helps the dramatic ending catch you off guard a little bit more than it otherwise might have, but I think that it'll be a deal breaker for a lot of people, especially those who see that this is a top 10 movie on Netflix. Like, sorry grandma, this isn't The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This is the most boringest movie you've ever seen about a bunch of miserable people living miserable lives. And you know what? There's barely even a fucking dog in the entire movie, for Christ's sake, and they had the gall to call it The Power of the Dog? Like, why couldn't we have seen more of this dog? What's his story, and what power is exactly emanating from him? I guess it would have been nice to get just a little more clarity on what the film means by its title. What? Air Bud? Is that you? How did you get back in my review? Who are these people? And what? Where did you find the 1997 Seattle Seahawks? Oh, you damn dirty 49ers. The Seahawks' biggest rival. Get 'em, boys. Oh, wait. Air Bud. He's gonna get it. He's got it! Touchdown, Seahawks! Well, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe and let me know what you thought of The Power of the Dog in the comments below. Thanks for watching.